operators adopt different technologies in different markets. But of course, one of the important things is the benefits that mobile broadband brings. And we're seeing that operators are investing in new technologies such as HSPA and long-term evolution. There was a sort of previous comment, I think yesterday, that mobile technology tends to be one step behind fixed. I think it's taken mobile, as started as primarily a voice product, but now operators are really investing in new technologies to make mobile technologies much more data-centric. We're now seeing mobile networks perhaps having 50% of their capacity used up by data. It's a huge change, and it's growing exponentially. And in response to that, operators have invested in HSPA and deploying that. There are now over 130 million HSPA terminals worldwide. And if you think that service sort of only came on stream 2 or 3 years ago, that's a very, very rapid growth. And the operating industry realizes that it won't stop there. People want much higher data rates. People want 100 megabits and beyond. And to that end, people are investing in long-term evolution. That's a technology which will probably be deployed first in the US. But people in Europe are expecting its deployment perhaps beginning in 2011 and mass rollout in 2012. But of course, that depends on regulatory decisions that are made. And the band 79862, the digital dividend band, which has been identified and is being harmonised on a European-wide basis by the CPT with work by the Commission, that's vital to making that vision happen, because without that band, coverage would be much more expensive, not as economically efficient as it otherwise would be. So that poses regulatory challenges. I'll just skip over this slide, other than to say that many European countries have decided to make 79862 available. Germany, very recently, I think a couple of months ago, announced to be part of the biggest auction in German history, over 300 megahertz. And they see it as a way of boosting economic growth, as a development package, not as a way of generating auction revenues. They see the importance of these technologies, mobile technologies, as a way of offering broadband to people in areas which they wouldn't otherwise be able to have it. And it's a way of providing jobs and international competitiveness in these very difficult financial times. The UK has decided, Ireland has published a consultation which is very favourable, France, Sweden, Switzerland. I was in Belgrade a couple of weeks ago talking to Eastern European countries, and many of these countries now are considering doing this and very much coming around to the way that this should be done. And it's an issue that needs to be tackled before analog switch-off. If we wait until analog switch-off and then decide how to allocate these bands, it's going to be much more difficult than if we did this before. And really there's a very strong incentive for everybody to adopt the same band. One, because the terminals will be much less expensive because of economies of scale. It would also help on international roaming, everybody using the same band for coverage. And it would help control interference if everybody used these same bands. And it's a very small portion of the spectrum used for television currently. This very small portion of less than 100 megahertz, I don't think would make a lot of difference to the services that could be offered on terrestrial TV once we have digital, because digital is so many more times efficient than analog is. It already is 8, 9, 10 times more efficient. So what's the impact? Well, this slide just basically shows that if you had to rely on the current 3G bands for coverage, it's over 3 times more expensive than if we had access to these harmonized 700 bands. So that's a very important issue that needs to be borne in mind. It's obviously why the broadcasters are very keen to use this spectrum. And even if this small band was allocated to mobile broadband, it would still be allow terrestrial TV plenty of expansion and growth. We all know the importance of broadband, not only for delivering mobile TV content, but other forms of content, and very important for jobs, and allowing citizens to take part in the knowledge-based economy, and also increasing social cohesion. People that live in rural areas will be able to perhaps have their businesses trade with people not inside their location. You're seeing virtual companies being formed now, with an engineer in Athens, an accountant in London, an economist in Zurich. this is the way people are doing business now, and they need access to mobile broadband to do that. This is just a slide showing some work which was done by an independent consultant, McKinsey, showing that the difference in penetration, broadband penetration that mobile will add. And we can see the difference there for Western Europe going from 64% penetration of broadband using fixed to over 100% using mobile, because of people using machines having access to mobile broadband. So the conclusions. I think the internet's all pervasive. It's changing the way we do everything. It's changed mobile networks. Mobile networks have moved from voice-centric devices to devices that offer broadband because that's what consumers want. We've seen rapid change from GSM via Edge and GPRS to data-centric networks now with CDMA. And if you look at the investment in technology change, it's been quite massive in changing GSM. And LTE is just around the corner, which will be able to offer data rates, much higher data rates, much lower latency, which means a much better user experience, a lower cost per bit. So there's been a real focus by the industry. But access to spectrum is important. One, for capacity, because now we're seeing mobile networks very heavily loaded with data. So that will mean access to the higher bands for capacity. But it also means access to harmonized lower bands for coverage. And the best option for that is this band 790 to 862, which is being harmonized Europe-wide. And that would be one of the challenges, I think, that Greece and the Greek regulators need to face. The mobile technology choice will vary from market to market. As I said, harmonized spectrum is very important. I mean, as a sort of passing note, I mean, broadband now, from a few years ago, it was a niche product, perhaps something that people weren't that interested in. It's now really being seen as a social right. People feel excluded if they don't have access to broadband. There are so many things that you can't do if you don't have broadband, and I think it's a very important issue. Television is obviously very important, but the two benefits, the two issues need to be weighed in hand, and it will be very unfortunate if television simply kept the spectrum that it has simply because it had it for historic reasons. I think we're living in times of such rapid change, such big changes, that we need to think very carefully before we make these decisions. The last time sort of TV channels were planned before Geneva 06, I think, was in 1961. So the decisions that we make now will have an impact for many, many years to come. And there's also a growing international momentum behind 790-862. From sort of a couple of years ago, hardly anybody was interested in making these bands available as regulators. Now the landscape's entirely different. We have very large European economies. The US has made this spectrum available. Bar some minor hiccups with delays of refarming, but the spectrum is available pretty much. So, there's a very strong trend now to make these bands available. And I would think it's a very important issue for Greece, for the Greek economy, and for the ability for Greek citizens to participate in the knowledge-based economy. So thank you very much.